Hey, what's good, Jazz fans? Welcome to Jabber Jazz, where you get your ad-free, fan-driven Utah Jazz basketball talk each week. And we got a really, really special episode today. I'm joined by two awesome guests who are going to help me draft Utah Jazz assets. First, we got someone who just dropped an awesome draft pick evaluator tool that you need to check out on his Twitter, McCade Pearson. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. First, big shout out to you two. You two helped a ton with that. I'm good. I got Knicks Pistons on in the background. Bojan Bogdanovic is playing in a Pistons jersey, and Donovan Mitchell is not playing in a Knicks jersey.
That's great. And then we've also got someone who dropped an incredible article as well, draft pick related, specifically on isolating the true value of NBA draft picks. Riley Gisman dropped that article on Salt City Hoops. Riley, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, Adam. Excited to be here.
Okay, so like I mentioned, we are drafting Utah Jazz assets. Jazz made a ton of trades over the offseason, tons of movement, and Danny Ainge restocked the Jazz coffers, and we've got a brand new team right in front of us that we're getting to know right now. And so we're going to evaluate the kind of value that they have, and we're specifically trying to go about the idea that if we had to split the Jazz today, and we assigned Riley and McCade as new GMs, each their respective groups, what would they want to start off with asset-wise as they prepare for the future leading out these new teams? So that's kind of the idea that we're going about. And before we get in, I'll just explain some process and rules real quick. So McCade and Riley are going to take turns drafting, and I'm going to be the host moderator for good or bad. So we're going to go every other pick. While not quite the most fair, it's going to make McCade, who has the second pick, it's going to really flex his GM muscles, which will be fun. Each will get 60 seconds to make their pick. While they're waiting to make their selection, we're going to just get some insight from whomever made their selection just barely. And then throughout, we'll stop every once in a while, catch up on the selections that were made, and just kind of speak candidly about surprises or differences in philosophy, that kind of a thing. We're going to have 48 possible selections. You can see them on the screen here. And if you haven't yet, please consider tuning in via YouTube, our YouTube channel, Jabber Jazz, where you'll be able to see the draft board and see all the picks that McCade and Riley are going to make and see all our lovely faces and Jazz gear in person. So we've got the draft board up here, 48 selections between players, picks, and other assets. And the considerations for all of these, we chose all the players that are on the training camp roster outside of the two-way contract we have. We chose to do all first and second round picks. And the other assets we're considering are cap space for the next consecutive years and the current trade exceptions that the Jazz have at their disposal. So, McCade and Riley, in your 30 seconds, you'll be able to go into as much depth or as surface level as you want for how you determined the value to make your selection. You guys ready to do it?
Let's go. I'm excited.
Ready as I'm going to get.
All righty. So Riley is up with his first pick. I'm going to start the clock. And so you got 60 seconds to kind of come up with what you wanted, but as prepared as I think you are, I don't think it'll take that long.
Yeah, I think we can jump right into it. Let's just go right off the bat with the 2023 first round pick for the Jazz. It's unprotected, so that's really useful. They're expected to lose a lot of games. Whether or not they do remains to be seen. But we can expect that to be a mid to high lottery pick at the very least, which is better than anyone else that we've got on the roster right now, at least in terms of asset value. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. So McCade still has 40 seconds to make his second selection, but I think some fans might be a little surprised by the 2023 pick going first off the board as opposed to some of those that are further down the line, primarily just because I think a lot of us tend to think, oh, what could happen? Instead of, as you pointed out in your article, a lot of what goes into the value of these picks is just when they'll convey.
Yep, exactly.
So you threw me for a loop there. I was going to take them with my first pick. I'm going to go with Ochai Agbaji first, simply because he's the only rookie contract lottery pick we have. And just by default, that makes him the most likely to become a Hall of Famer of all our teams. Even if that likelihood is 0.5%, it's still better than anything else we got. And you need a Hall of Famer to win championships. And so even at 0.5%, I think that's the next best value.
So Ochai Agbaji as the second overall pick in our Jazz asset draft, correct?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I also think that's a bit surprising. I think as far as players might go, I think most fans might consider Colin Sexton as being the target there, just given that team control for a good amount of years with that re-sign in the sign and trade. Excellent, value contract and what he showed as, at the very least, a ceiling in 2 years ago when he was kind of a Donovan Mitchell light, 75% of Donovan. So that's pretty interesting. All right, Riley, you ready to go with your second pick, the third overall?
Chai all the way down to 6 on my board. That's because I have a number of first-round draft picks. The next one I have is 2026 as my number 2 selection, or I guess third overall selection.
All right.
The primary thought process between Ochai versus a draft pick like 2026 in particular, because there's a pick swap attached to that, both for Minnesota and Cleveland. And so if the Jazz were to convey their pick earlier, then they have full control of the worst team of those three, whoever they pick, whatever pick they have. And so I find that pick to be likely to end up in the lottery, as well as 24 and 25. But 24 and 25 have a chance of not conveying if the Jazz were to be 11 through 30 or 9 through 30 in those 2 years. As for Agbaji versus a first-round pick, I think the value lies in the unknown, where Agbaji is a solid player, and I don't doubt that he has a chance to become a championship-level player. But he is 22. He was the 13th pick in the draft. And I see less of a route to championship contention through a player, an individual, than I do through a draft pick where it could end as high as number 1 and it could become a player, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, whoever else.
That's fantastic, Riley. Thanks so much, and especially thanks for pointing out your kind of philosophy difference on Ochai. That's great. You're about up, McCade, man. You know where you want to go with this next selection?
That at number 12. Yeah, I'm going with Colin Sexton next. I had him third on my board. Going back to the same thing with Agbaji, you just need talent, and there's 2 very specific paths where Colin Sexton could be a big positive asset for the Jazz. A, he could just be a great basketball player, be top 40 in the league, and that's just a great player to have. B, he could, be top 80, top 60, and at his contract, especially as the cap continues to go up, he could be a very tradable asset. There's a lot weighing on him on what he is as an NBA player, and if that breaks right, it will benefit the Jazz, whether that's on the roster or as a trade asset. So that double-edged, that 2 possibility benefit rose him to number 3 on my draft board.
Yeah, Colin's extremely interesting because usually, when you get a player as young as him who moves teams, they kind of call that the second draft in a way. But usually you aren't seeing a type of player in a second draft type of scenario who kind of had the type of campaign he had in his third year. So really interesting floor and ceiling kind of discussion for what Colin could be. That'll be really fascinating. So I started the timer late, Riley, but you're free to go whenever you feel like you're ready.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to pivot my my strategy here because McCade's going more with players rather than picks, and I want to take Jared Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is still just 21 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years, but he's already turned himself into a very solid, positive defensive player. You don't see quite as much room for growth on the offensive end for him as you would say an Ochai Agbaji or a Colin Sexton. But as you've seen with a number of teams, you just need solid players to go alongside your stars in order to compete at the highest level. So,
yeah, speak for just a second, because part of what plays into this, and us three have discussed previously, is team control of the player and odds of bringing them back on the team. He's got an incredibly friendly contract currently. What would you say are some of the odds of keeping him around and at a cap friendly deal?
Yeah, I mean, not only do I think that it's likely that you can keep Jared Vanderbilt around, it seems like that's the probable scenario. Like that is the scenario that the Jazz want to happen. Sorry, I think I just unplugged my microphone.
No, we hear you loud and clear. You're great.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, no, that said, I think that there's a high chance of retention with Vanderbilt just because he's a necessary player on a championship contender, and you often don't get a one-to-one value when you look at an offensive player versus a defensive player. You'll typically get a little bit more value when you touch on a defensive player.
All right, McCade, you're up with the 6th overall pick in your 3rd selection. Where are you going, man?
I'm muted. Sorry about that. No, I had JV at number 5 as well, so that's great value. I had 4 players I had circled. The last one being Lauri Markkanen, just above JV. Again, we've seen Markkanen play phenomenal for Finland in September. He looked okay in the first preseason game. We have another one tonight. He is another guy who, at least on paper, still has a little bit of all-star potential. A lot like Sexton. Maybe he hits the ceiling and goes a little higher. Maybe he becomes a super, super solid role player. At the very minimum, he's good salary matching like we just saw in the Donovan Mitchell trade. There's a lot of possibilities for Lauri Markkanen to be a positive player for the Utah Jazz, again, as a player or a trade asset, and that just intrigues me. Very similar to Colin Sexton, just not quite as ceiling heavy.
Yeah, he is extremely interesting because he went to Eurobasket, got all this responsibility, found a ton of success, and it seemed as though he would be returning to a scenario where all that opportunity and responsibility would be stripped away, but instead redirected to the Jazz, where his role is going to be a lot closer to what he kind of played in Eurobasket than it would have been with the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, Riley. I started the clock again late, but when you're ready, go for it. Where are you going with number 7?
Okay, perfect. Excuse me. I'm thinking we'll go with. Let's go with Malik Beasley. Beasley, he's just 20. Shoot, how old is Malik Beasley?
He is.
Beasley's just 25 years old. Yeah, he's just 25 years old. He's on a very team-friendly contract. He's got a team option on the 2nd year of that contract. It's worth, I think, $15 million, which I wouldn't quite put Beasley at that level yet. But with both his experience, his constant progression in the NBA as a player, I think we lost McCade.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, excuse me. His progression in the NBA has just left us with a very straightforward path to him also, just like Jared Vanderbilt, being a successful role player on a championship contender.
Yeah, Malik is super interesting. And I personally am a little surprised he went this high, primarily just because, he's in a contract year. But the Jazz do have a real opportunity to keep him, and like you mentioned, I believe he turns 25 in the middle of November. So super young guy still, and the the resume that he has of being a consistent shooter, both off the bounce and as a catch and shoot guy, I just, think it really preserves a pretty high floor for what he can do. So, I could have seen that kind of going either way. So that's pretty interesting. Welcome back, McCade.
And something else with Malik Beasley. I took Beasley, and so something else with Malik Beasley. I think most Jazz fans will have noticed how professional he's been with the team so far. He showed up in a suit and tie. He's been extremely straightforward that his goals are to win, and he's going to do everything in his power to do that. And I think that while it is one thing to say things and it's another to, follow those up with actions, I think that it's important to say those right things. And I think that more than anything else we have on a lot of these players is a guiding star towards him becoming a very good player. So.
Yeah, absolutely. He said all the right things, and I have hope that there's a career turnaround and personal turnaround for him. So, McCade, you're up, man. Where do you want to go with the
number 8
8th overall pick, your 4th selection?
The Utah 2024 first. We all like to think we're getting Victor Wembanyama, a superstar, in this next draft. Chances are it's not going to be a one-year rebuild, and chances are that's going to be a bad pick as well. The quirk on this pick, of course, is it is top 10 protected to Oklahoma City, so you are going to have to be bad to get a hold of it. But assuming the Jazz do have that bottom 10 pick, that's a bottom 10 pick they're going to put in their rotation and hopefully championship team.
So you identified the 2024 first pick? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, no. Awesome. Okay, so I'll make that selection. Yeah. So that one is really interesting. I was going to mention on the 2026 pick that was made by Riley at the first overall pick, the number 3 overall pick, which is that swap right in 2026 with Utah, Minnesota, and Cleveland. That one does get a little bit hairy if the Jazz are bad, really early. But with how it seems like they're trying to go about things, at least to start this year, is to try to build some winning culture, try to establish some winning habits and things like that. So it may be that the Jazz really are indeed bad enough, late enough for that 2026 pick to not convey to Oklahoma City. Jazz preserve the rights, and therefore that 2024 one being assuredly going to convey to the Jazz. So that one is really interesting. Okay, so Riley, you are up.
Okay, perfect. With that, so that 2025, I like the 2026 pick more than the 2024 pick. Just because I do see that progression of the winning culture. I think that there's a high likelihood that the pick conveys either in 2024 or 2025. And so I think that, 2026 inherently has more value only because I think that it does not have a chance of not conveying for 2 reasons. I think that if Utah does keep that 24 and 25 pick, then in 26, it's more likely that they will then have the choice of saying, hey, we're going to just tank one more year just in case, Cleveland's looking really bad at this point. Just in case Cleveland wins the lottery by some crazy scenario. So I like that 26 pick a little bit more. I'll go with the 28 pick for this next one for the Jazz as well. Again, it's in the power of the unknown. I think there's a high likelihood the Jazz are a winning team by then, but you just don't know. So,
yeah, and that one in 2028, you have that swap right with Cleveland, and so very good chance the Jazz are good, and maybe Cleveland's good too. but you're getting yourself control over, the destiny, if you will, of two teams, and so that one definitely has a lot of value inherently. All right, McCade, what are you thinking, man, for the 10th selection?
Number
here?
10, I got another player for you. Walker Kessler. A lot less potential than Abaji, I think, but at the same time, you just don't know what you have in a rookie. And actually having a rookie who theoretically should get decently heavy minutes on this team intrigues me. I think theoretically in a successful rebuild, you want to have some players on your roster that you're going to have through the rebuild, and Walker Kessler could be that guy. He could be out of the league in 3 years. I get that. He could be a Hall of Famer, just like Rudy Gobert. We don't know. It's obviously likely somewhere in the middle. He's probably not going to be either. But just the potential, at this point, you just got to get as high a ceiling as possible. And you have a rookie who's already getting minutes. And I'd take that over any other pick. At this point, anyway.
Yeah, Kessler is extremely interesting, particularly for me, because we have kind of his polar opposite in a way of Udoka Azubuike, Doke, he's got all the athleticism, he's got the frame, he's got the, those just raw, I guess that raw talent. But on the other hand, Walker Kessler, I got the impression that he's just incredibly cerebral, has a real smart approach, and so it'll be interesting to watch those two this year. Maybe watch those two. Doak kind of being a cut candidate, but that will be interesting to watch play out because we are kind of getting a different type of backup center to kind of evaluate. All right, Riley, you are up, man.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I've already got mine. I'll go ahead and counter McCade's pick by picking the last rookie for the Jazz, Simone Fontecchio.
Yeah.
He did fall down on my board a little bit after not playing much in that first preseason game. But again, it's the same thing. Just he's a rookie, and value lies in the unknown when you're a tanking team like the Jazz. And really, we don't know that much about him. We know that he's a very good shooter. We know that he can handle the ball and pass a little bit. But he's a 26-year-old on a $3 million deal. He's non-guaranteed in the second year, I believe. And, you put all of that together, and you could get a player who's contributing something like 7, 8, 9 wins towards a very good winning team in the future on a smaller contract than you'd expect. So,
yeah, super interesting. He's got the size, he's got the shooting, he's got some experience. It'll be, and if he pans out, great. The likelihood of him being on a non-friendly deal, by the time you gotta extend him, is super unlikely. And if he doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out. No big deal. All right, McCade, where are you going?
That was my next pick, Riley. Smart move. I'm going to go with Utah 2025 first. We don't need to talk about this too much more than Utah 2024 first. I get the Thunder protections are there, and you hope to just convey this pick sooner rather than later because of that 2026 pick swap. At the same time, I say this all the time in regards to the NFL. You just got to keep trying to get your quarterback until you do. Same thing in the NBA. You've got to keep trying to get your superstar until you do. And so I'm going to keep taking these Utah picks until we get our superstar. So I'll go with Utah 2025 first here.
Yeah, what the Jazz have, an incredible luxury that a few tanking teams actually have, and I think we're kind of seeing it in the Spurs a little bit, is that we have so many players who could be just incredible complements to a contending team. If you land that superstar, if you get him in the next, 1 to 3 drafts, and you've got team control over these guys, all of a sudden you can go from 0 to hero pretty darn quick. All right, Riley, you got 8 seconds left before your next selection.
Yeah, my next pick is going to be the 2029 Cleveland first. With 2029, we have 3 firsts. And the comparison for me comes down to, first of all, Minnesota's top 3 protected. But the comparison for me comes down to, Utah's roster is going to be made up of all of these guys that we've drafted at that point. As well as, maybe Igbaji, maybe Kessler, maybe whoever else. makes it to that point, but will have a lot of value added up at that point. Cleveland, on the other hand, they have 4 young All-Stars right now, but Darius Garland is the only one who will be under contract right now as of 2029. And not only does that spell bad news if they were to not keep those other players, but there's also the chance that one of those players doesn't work out. And you know, maybe Jarrett Allen had one great year where he ended up being an all-star caliber player, but he's not that anymore. While I don't get those same feelings with Utah's roster or with Minnesota's roster.
It's interesting. It doesn't appear like they'll have much of an opportunity to tie up some of these guys on those, you know, super team friendly from an all-star standpoint perspective, team friendly contracts before the cap starts going up. They're going to be right in the thick of the cap going up and using a lot of their cap space on their, you know, their 4 prospective all-stars.
All right, me up at 14. This is going to probably catch you out of left field. I put the 2027 cap space. Theoretically, on paper, that's when Victor Wembanyama's contract extension kicks in. And so that's your deadline to really set your team in stone for that era. The Jazz went with Mike Conley this past time. It didn't work out how we wanted. We just saw the Mavericks do basically nothing with that time frame in Luka. You really have to hit cap space 2027 if you're going to hit your 2023 first-round pick. As of right now, the Jazz have 3 cap holds for that summer. It would be the 2 first-round pick rookies and Colin Sexton. So we'll see where those 3 are, if they're on the Jazz, if they're any good, all that fun stuff. But that's your deadline. Really trade deadline 2028. Sorry, trade deadline 2027. To really put everything together if you want 2027 to 2031 to be a title contention team on your 2023 first-round pick second contract.
Yeah, that's a you know, I think a super underrated pick because, yeah, it's really important. And Riley mentioned it in his article that the real value is surrounding a clear franchise player with talent on his rookie deal, and as they're going into that second deal off their rookie contract, that they're a championship contender right then. All right, Riley, where are you hoping to go here with the 15th pick?
You know, McCade is he's right on my line of thinking. I'm going to go with the 2028 cap space.
Okay.
So just the year right after, there's a chance we draft, you know, the next Victor Wembanyama in 2024, which likely DJ Wagner. There's a couple other names that you might know.
Why not both?
Bronny. Who knows?
Bronny.
But no, yeah, 2028 will have that deadline as well for that max contract.
All right, I'm going to follow Riley's line of thinking here and start going back to some draft picks. I got Cleveland's 2027 next for the 16th pick. This is post Donovan Mitchell. Theoretically, Rudy Gobert's still around in Minnesota. Theoretically, the Jazz are good. Anytime you get an unprotected first-round pick after the player you traded away is gone, I'll take that any day of the week. I also think, as we just talked about, that 2027 timeframe is so important. And based on how Cleveland is in 2024, 5, 6, this is either a great trade asset or a great pick to hold on to. And so we'll see where Cleveland is and decide if we want to cash in that asset before the draft or, you know, take a number 1 overall pick with that pick. So I have Cleveland 2027 there.
I'm going to take just a second to recap where we are. We've gone through 16 picks, so we have 8 assets on either side for McCade and Riley. Riley's section comprises the 2023 first from Utah, the 2026 first that is protected to Oklahoma City, but the Jazz also have rights to the swap for Minnesota and Cleveland. Riley also has Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, the first in 2028 for the Utah Jazz that has a swap right with Cleveland, Simone Fontecchio, the unprotected first in 2029 from Cleveland, and cap space in 2028. So that's Riley's team thus far with 8 selections. McCade has Oshai Abaji, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, the 2024 Utah first-round pick, Walker Kessler, 2025 first from Utah, Cap Space 2027 and the Cleveland First in 2027, which is fully unprotected. So that's where we stand. 8 selections in for each of these guys. You ready to keep on going?
Let's go.
All right, Riley, you're up, man.
Okay. I'm just going to pick up.
You muted yourself, by the way. Your mute button. Right as you started.
Yeah, no, I felt good about myself. Here we go. So I'm just going to follow up what McCade had and do 2027 for Minnesota. It's the same sort of scenario. Rudy Gobert's contract will end by 2026, I believe, and there's a chance that Rudy's still there and he could be still good, but I think that it's more likely than not that he's not quite as good as he is now. Anthony Edwards will be 27, I believe, and Karl Anthony Towns will be reaching his 30s. And so I think that there's enough room for something to go wrong there that could end up being a lottery pick.
That was my next pick.
A lot can change when you push all the chips in. Go for it, McCade. Where are you going next?
Let's keep on with 2027 picks. I'm taking Utah's 2027 pick there. Hopefully this isn't a good pick draft-wise, but because of the stipend rule and other things, and you have these other assets around, like the Cleveland, Minnesota 2027 picks, this could be a pick the Jazz could very well and easily trade and still get to be able to build around whatever star we have in 2025, 2026, and whatnot. So that pick, especially as a trade asset compared to a draft asset, I think has a ton of value. Riley and I have both really hit how important that 2027 year is.
Yeah, by that time we should really have a pretty good idea of what the team is and what is missing to really be a contender. And like you said, that's a trade asset, to land you, that piece in the rotation that puts you over the top and keeps you in that contender tier. Or you land a real impact rotation player on a rookie scale contract that you aren't using on a player of equal skill set, but eating a ton into the cap and really tying up flexibility. All right, Riley, what are you thinking, man?
Okay, let's go with cap space in 2029. It's just alongside the same line of thinking as 27 and 28. Except I find 29 a little bit more enticing than 26 or 25, because I feel as though the Jazz are going to go on a two-hill sort of rebuild where they'll get up to a mediocre level and then they'll get this influx of players from 2025, 27, and 29 where they have 3 picks per draft, which is absolutely nuts. And so that cap space, in order to capitalize around those rookie contracts, is going to be extremely valuable to capitalize on.
Yeah, I love how you framed that.
That's fascinating. And if we had
really
a few hours, I'd love to
surrounding
break into this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, another pod when we dive into some of these bigger conversations down the road. Absolutely. And I want to just say for all our listeners, if you haven't yet tuned into the YouTube, you'll want to see McCade and Riley's reactions when they inevitably have been, selecting what was next on the other's board, and you can totally tell it's great. You were about to say something, McCade.
No, yeah, what's fascinating here is I'm taking 2026 right here, cap space. More just to really keep open 2027. You have to do a good job. I had, we have 48 assets here, and I had cap space 2029 off my 40 pick board. In my mind, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, we're in cap hell in the luxury tax right there. Like, I want to, by 2029, I want to be in the luxury tax and not thinking about it. If everything goes well before there. So I get Riley's thinking. I'm hoping we're good by then, that we're not worrying about cap space. We're in the luxury tax. His reasoning is sound. I just went with 2026 instead.
Yeah, hopefully we're not in the middle ground where we're where Danny has moved on into retirement. We have somebody who's trying to offload some of our seconds to shed salary by that point. All right, Riley, where you want to go? You are at the 21st overall pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take 2029 Utah. I actually had that right up near the top of my board. I let it fall for quite a bit, but it's just still there's so many cycles that an NBA team goes through where you just don't know where the Jazz are going to be in 2029. I agree with McCade wholeheartedly where it's like, yeah, ideally we will be in the luxury tax and pushing championship contention in one way or another, but I still want that 2029 first round pick just because I don't want to mess anything up.
Well, and if you are in the luxury tax at that point, you want your super late, first to either, move back to the early second round, right, to get, similar player, or just to, bring somebody in, on super cap friendly deal, something like that. Just gives you the options, whereas we've seen in the past recently, Jazz haven't had the option, and they've kind of lost out. All right, McCade, you're up, man.
All right. I'm heading back towards players. First, I'm going to start with Mike Conley. Again, we're trying to build to this 2027 timeframe. I think Mike Conley is a trade asset theoretically by this deadline or maybe next summer can help you push. When I was on my podcast, Brian Priest, I'd always talk about pushing assets forward and how important that is to win championships. And the Jazz ability to push Mike Conley's value forward in whatever way they can will be a key to the success later in the rebuild. So right now, as a veteran in the locker room, but I still think we should be looking to trade Mike here in the next 12 months. The $14 million partial guaranteed is a little quirky. He's not at an awful number, so I think this is a good place to take Mike.
Where was Mike Conley on your board, Riley? Curious.
Mike was a lot lower. I'm surprised that McCade wanted him here.
I'm a little surprised as well. Yeah.
And I'll follow that up just by going straight into my pick, saying I'm going to take Minnesota's 2025 unprotected pick. That is purely because if Minnesota came to us and said, "Hey, we'll give you our 2025 first round pick for Mike Conley," I would say, "Absolutely, give me that's a deal." I'm gonna be heartbroken whenever Mike Conley's traded, but he's not worth the Minnesota 2025 first round pick.
That's a pretty fantastic way to frame it, McCade. Any comeback to save face?
No, I think that's totally fair, and that's why teams are in different stages, right? We're in the rebuilding stage. We probably want the Minnesota 2025 pick. I do think the asset we'll eventually get from Mike Conley will be a better timing and a better pick than the Minnesota 2025. Maybe we'll have to throw that on Twitter and come back to it in like 3 years. I just don't have a lot of confidence that Minnesota pick's going to be top 25 or so. For sure top 15, and so we'll see what ends up happening. I did have the Minnesota pick right around the corner on my list, though.
There you go.
So it's not. That's,
yeah, and
I
think that's why these conversations are so fascinating, because people are coming from different angles. We all have our own. Sorry, it looks like we're a little choppy there, McCade.
Yeah, we'll have to get your camera fixed and microphone.
Is it going off?
But I think that's mainly why I wanted to have this exercise, because we all have different approaches to the value of these players, and a lot of times we don't get to take a peek into someone else's head and see how they're evaluating and kind of realign what we're thinking to that new information. So, all right, Riley, Riley already went. So, McCade, you have your next pick.
Sorry.
You were a little choppy.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you made it.
I got a couple more players I'm going after to push the assets forward.
All right.
Can you hear me? We good? I got a couple more players I'm pushing forward.
Yeah,
First is Jordan Clarkson. Again, get value for Jordan Clarkson, even if it's 80 cents on the dollar. Keeping that value in that salary, $10, $12, $15 million range is really important for this Jazz team. So just keep pushing those assets forward. And that value forward is top priority for me at this point as the 24th pick. Relatively top priority at
Yeah, why did you have Conley above Clarkson in this scenario? I think team control is similar. Jordan making a lot more money, and I think market perceived his is a bit better than Conley's at this point. Curious why you had that that difference.
I think Mike Conley is a better player, but he is more of an acquired taste. You're going to need the right injury to happen or the right question to come up for a team to trade Mike Conley. A lot more teams could use Jordan Clarkson. But there'll be a team or two come trade deadline once injuries start happening. I think Mike Conley will have more value. But Mike Conley is for sure a shorter window.
That's a fair
more
point.
Perfectly timed trade.
That's a fair point because for instance, if you are trading Mike for positive value, it's likely going to be to a team that's desperate for his skill set. Whereas with Jordan Clarkson, a team could just so much as land Jordan Clarkson as Terrence Ross or someone else. So that may be a contributing factor too. All right, Riley, where you wanting to go?
You were unmuted and then you hit mute.
I was about to say we stumped Riley.
Oh man, okay. We're gonna take 2029 Minnesota, their first round pick. It is protected 1 through 5. It's unlikely that it doesn't convey. If it doesn't convey, it becomes a second round pick, which is a loss. But I mean, in the end, there are 25 other picks that it can be. So I'm gonna take that one.
Theoretically, it should be a top 5 second round pick if it ends up being top 5 lottery.
Yeah, absolutely that as well.
But,
and in 2029, wouldn't be the worst thing to have, one of the better second round picks if that was, versus the alternative of it just never conveying, I guess. All right, McCade, what do you want to do, man?
You could argue that if the Jazz are good that year, you want that 32nd overall pick, right? Like, that's what Milwaukee just did last year, where they traded back from 25 to 32 just because it's cheaper. Shorter contract, all that fun stuff. I had the Minnesota 2029 pick next, right after Kelly Olynyk. My third player in this group of 3 of just, they have some value now. Make sure you have that value 3-4 years from now. Make sure you keep that value floating. So nothing more to say there. We talked about it a good amount. But those are my 3 players right here in this grouping.
With his partial guarantee being so little next year, I think it's $3 million. Do you just feel like that just gives the Jazz a ton of flexibility? Either you move him, or you keep him around, and it's or you waive him, or whatever. All right, Riley. When you're ready, man, I think you're up with the number 27 pick.
Okay, and I'll jump in on Kelly Olynyk as well. He averaged something like 19. Here, I'm pulling it up right now. 19 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game when he played in Houston. That's in just 31 minutes per game. He was a great player for them at that time, and a very good starting caliber center. If he were to reach those levels again, with his partial guarantee next year, we either have the option to let him go going into the next year, or he would be getting paid MLE money at $12 million a year. And so ultimately what you're getting is the possibility at a solid, very good starting level center. And like McCade said, you want to hold on to that value, make sure you have it in 2-3 years. So I find that important as well.
Excellent.
Anyway, so I'm going to jump into my first of the buy low, sell high players. I'm going to take Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Sorry, I'm going to take Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah, so he's really interesting. I've kind of been out on him a little bit, but I mean that definition of buy low, sell high. So I guess sell us on the I guess the opportunity there to recoup some value and really come out with a better asset than we've kind of come in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree to an extent. When we traded for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it seemed as though it was going to be a fairly solid trade return for a Joe Ingles that just tore his ACL. You never expect to get that type of value out of a guy who's going to leave in free agency. That said, yeah, he was disappointing. He averaged 3 points a game and barely played for the Jazz. But he was solid with New Orleans. He wasn't great, but he has the length to become a very good defender. And I think nobody would deny that he has the chops to become a scorer at the NBA level. He needs to grow in efficiency, but we've seen lots of players do that by changing their shot chart and doing other things like that. Jordan Clarkson, as an example, for one. I feel similarly to Nickeil Alexander-Walker as I did Jordan Clarkson at that point in his career.
Yeah, that's a really interesting comparison, because at the time, we exclusively thought of Jordan Clarkson as just the gunner, the chucker, and who was detracting severely from the team in other respects. And he's proved to be a lot more efficient than his Cleveland and Laker days, and has shown to be a positive culture figure for the team. Still drives you nuts on a lot of different plays, but it kind of comes with the territory of his ilk. So
exactly.
Do you have any from how the draft has kind of played out, how McCade has kind of approached, how you've kind of approached, any surprises that we haven't mentioned thus far?
I'm surprised that let me look through this real quick. I'm surprised we haven't touched on the 2025 cap space yet. Don't tell McCade. He's gone right now. But yeah, that's next on my board. And I avoided it this last time to take Alexander Walker out of fear that McCade would take Alexander Walker.
Yeah.
But that is right around the time where these players that we're drafting in the next 2 years will be on a rookie contract still. And so if we want to jump at that opportunity as soon as possible, as well as add talent around, Colin Sexton and Kelly Olynyk, as well as, add talent around those players that are already on the team, Malik Beasley or whoever.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's the opportunity to do so, is in 2025, 2024.
So I lost
Riley,
Adam.
McCade, now that you're
I'm
back
now. So where did we lose? Because I thought we lost Adam, but I guess you guys lost me, it sounds like.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we lost you, and it's too bad for you because Riley laid out his game plan, and you missed it. So
well, that's what signaled to me that you lost me. Is he said, "Don't tell McCade," and I was like, "Riley, it's you and me. Adam's not here right now. What are you talking about?" So that's what I figured out. So did you hear my 28th pick, or is that where we're at?
No, that's where we're at. Riley went with Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 27. We're on you.
Yep. Okay, and I went with Minnesota's 2023 and 20 for the 28th pick. Still 11 first-round picks. Not a great first-round pick. We only have 3 left on the board, but I think this one's going to be the highest of those 3. And I like things pushed forward at this point. Let's just get the talent in the door, and we'll figure it out later as we approach title contention 5 to 10 years from now. So I went Minnesota 2023, and I know where Riley's going now, so
All right, Riley, we're gonna start going a little rapid fire. We are kind of getting to the end of the draft, so we're gonna kind of mirror what the NBA does with the second draft, and except I'm not Adam Silver. I'm not handing the podium to to the deputy commissioner, but we're gonna go a little bit more rapid fire. So where are you going right now, Riley?
Okay, let's just go for it. Cap space in 2025. I already laid out my reasoning. So
excellent. All right, McCade, back to you, man.
Cleveland's going to peak in 2025, so it's not a great first-round pick, but it's a first-round pick. So in Cleveland 2025 right here.
Yeah, if we could have gotten a Phoenix 2023 pick for Bojan or something without taking on the bad salary or including Jared Vanderbilt, then we would have jumped at that chance. So, I totally get it from that perspective. Absolutely. Okay, Riley, where are you headed next?
Okay, I'm gonna take cap space in 2024. Same reasoning. If we have Victor Wembanyama on his sophomore deal, I'm gonna build around that as quickly as I can.
Yeah, do you feel like there are other people at the top of this draft class that even approximate with just sheer variance at what Victor, even on some of the average scenarios that he could result in that excite you, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two athletic freaks of the draft are Eamon Thompson and Scoot Henderson. Scoot's got a little bit more of verticality and explosiveness, while Ammon's got a bit more swiftness and speed, and he can get around the defender. I like Scoot a little bit more, but it remains to be seen between all three of them. I think they're all fantastic options.
Yeah, let's just give ourselves a chance by being in that sweet spot that you identified in your article. All right, McCade, where are you going, man? 30-second pick.
Yeah, let's talk. 30-second pick. I really want to emphasize that. 30-second pick, and I'm still getting a first-round pick value. I get it. It's the worst of Brooklyn, Philly, Houston, 2023. Shout out Houston, by the way. Lowest of Brooklyn, Philly. It's going to be low 20s. It's a first-round pick at a 30-second pick in an asset draft. So big shout-out there, even if it's an awful, wrong timing first-round pick. I just got a first-round pick at pick 32.
Yeah, so we have gone through 32 Utah Jazz assets. We still have 8 players left on the board. We have no first-round picks remain. We have 4 seconds left. And we have 2 trade exceptions and 2 years of cap space remaining. All right, Riley, you are up, man.
All right, I'm gonna go in on 2023 cap space now. Again, same reasoning. Victor Wembanyama's a rookie. Scoot Henderson's a rookie. We want to build around them, and I think that is the number one thing that you need to do when you've got those types of players. Don't waste your time on guys that are negative assets.
Excellent. All right,
okay, that
McCade,
puts
where are
me
you
up
going?
at 34. Let's go some more players. Leandro Balmero, former first-round pick, hasn't worked out. 2 years into the league. 2 years since being drafted, 1 year into the league. He's a cut candidate, but still high variance. You could still see him turning into something with some good coaching. And we have minutes to spare, right? We have to fill 48 minutes a night for the next 82 games. So let's see what we got. And Balmero is one of those players I hope we get to see.
Balmero was one of 4 players that did not see the court on Sunday night. We'll see what happens tonight, but I'm not feeling
very
great
surprised
about
at
his.
that. He won a gold medal, but he did not look good in
America
Cup either. Although I would say Jared Butler getting those minutes probably more likely played himself out of a roster spot. I almost wouldn't want those minutes because you're more likely to play yourself off than you are to play yourself on. But yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna go with Talon Horton-Tucker for my next pick.
Who did see the floor?
He did see the floor for a whole 8 minutes in that game. It's been a steep drop off from that first round pick McCade took 4 picks ago. But Talon Horton-Tucker, I think he's better than the second round pick at this point. There's a chance that he is decent because he's explosive and big and fat and whatever. I don't know.
I don't know, man. If we package him and Stanley Johnson with a first round pick, dude, who freaking knows what we could walk into asset wise?
We could maybe get Patrick Beverly.
All right, McCade.
I had Balmero, Horton-Tucker, and Rudy Gay in a group of 3. So I have Rudy Gay next at 36 for one reason only. To make trades in the NBA, you have to match salary, and Rudy Gay is making $7 million this year and $7 million next year, and that can help you match salary. And so there's no such thing as a bad contract between 7 and 17 mil, at least at the 36th pick. So shout out Rudy Gay.
There you go. It's interesting, for people who can't see the board yet. The Jazz draft picks from the 2020 draft, Jared Butler and Udoka Azubuike, through 36 picks are still on the board. That was a banger of a draft, man, wasn't it? All right, Riley, you're up, man.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go right with you there. I'm gonna take Udoka Azubuike. Yeah. Well, what is there to say? I mean,
what is there to
say? We hope that he can be, maybe have a chance at being a role player, maybe that dunks and blocks a few shots. I think that there's a chance that you could eventually turn him into a positive asset that is giving you 10 minutes a night and, providing a little bit more than he's getting paid for.
There you go. All right, McCade, where are you going? 38th
I got
pick.
no more players
Your
on my
penultimate
board. Just throwing that
pick.
out there. Riley, you can have whatever players you want.
You don't want
I'm going
a
with
coveted...
Memphis 2026.
I knew
I
you
don't
were
want
going
Jared
with
Butler.
a second.
I don't want Cody Zeller. I went with Memphis 2026. I think teams are more likely to trade away picks that aren't their own. And B, I would rather cheer against Memphis than cheer against Utah in terms of second-round picks. So that's why I have Memphis 2026 over the Jazz 3 second-round picks, which I do. I don't want to mention it, but I have to. The Jazz only have 3 of their second-round picks in this draft, and that's not fun. So I put Memphis 2026 above the others for that reason.
All righty. Okay, Riley, your last selection. Where are you going? It's slim pickings at this point.
It is slim pickings. I am tempted to go with 2025 Utah unprotected, but I'm going to go with Jared Butler. I've seen enough out of him to warrant him having the potential to not necessarily be a Mike Conley level player, but to be in the same mold, right? He's been talked about as a sophomore veteran by Will Hardy, where he's like kind of a coach on the floor, and he's kind of a strong influence on the other players. And I just it's not necessarily that I think that he's going to be the best player in the league, but I think that he probably provides us a higher impact sooner than a 2025 second round pick.
I'll happily take that.
Okay, McCade, your final pick, man.
I'll happily take that 2025 second round pick. Yeah, it's a pick. If the Jazz are still bad, it's like a top 37 pick, and that has value. So might as well throw it in my back pocket at pick number 40.
And that is 40 Utah Jazz draft selections. Way to go. So what was left on the board? Players, Cody Zeller, Stanley Johnson, Saban Lee, all cut candidates for the Jazz as they need to trim their roster ahead of the regular season. Picks for the Jazz are the 2026 and 2029 second rounders from Utah. And then other assets that were remaining was cap space in 2022. Not much left. And the trade exceptions for Joe Ingles and Rudy Gobert. Guys, thank you so much for doing this. This was
Before we go,
super
Ray,
enlightening for me.
What was lowest?
What was very last on my board?
What was last on your board? Yeah.
Last on my board was Cody Zeller.
Mine was Saban Lee.
What about you, McCade?
Yeah.
Saban Lee.
Okay.
The Trent Forrest connection. Being cousins and all. Well, awesome. This was fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming on. They say you want to be smart, you want to be successful, surround yourselves with smart, successful people, and those people are you guys to me. So I appreciate you lending your expertise, your opinions, and we'll be flooding the Twitter waves with their selections. So please tell the good people who are listening and watching where they can find you guys on Twitter to commend you for your brilliance.
Yeah, you can find me at Argis11, RGISS11. I'm always posting just dumb stuff. Don't worry about it. It's fun though. It's fun for me, and I hope that it can help other people have a little bit of insight and analysis in their lives.
And for you, McCade, where can they find you, buddy?
Right there with Riley on everything. Follow me at McCadePA. That's MCCADEP8. You know what to do.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. We'll be back someday soon to have more high-level Utah Jazz GM-like, GM wannabe type discussions. Thanks again, guys.